Imagine this. You're out at dinner with a group of friends. Everyone's laughing, the food was great, and the bill arrives. As the waiter brings the card reader around, you feel that split-second hitch in your breath. You do a quick mental calculation. Which card has the lowest balance right now? Or did my paycheck actually clear this morning? On the outside, you look fine. You have a decent job, your clothes are clean, and you're holding the latest iPhone. But at night, when you're staring at the ceiling, there's this nagging feeling that you're just running on a treadmill. You're working harder, but you're not actually moving forward. Look, here's the thing. That feeling isn't an accident. You might be showing what I call subtle poor signs. Habits that are so normalized in our society that you don't even realize they're keeping you broke. Everyone around you is doing them, so they feel standard, but they are actually silent wealth killers. My name is John, and I spend way too much time thinking about the psychology of money and why smart people stay stuck in the middle class. If you're someone who feels like you're earning good money but your net worth is still stuck at zero, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Most people think poverty is not having money. That's not quite right. Real financial struggle is often the inability to keep money, and the first subtle sign is the micro upgrade. I was talking to a guy recently, let's call him Dave. Dave's income went up by 30% last year. He got a big promotion, but when we looked at his savings, it was exactly the same as the year before. Why? Because that 30% raise was quietly eaten alive by a slightly more expensive gym membership, a premium streaming tier, and switching from regular coffee to those $7 craft lattes every single morning. In psychology, we call this hedonic adaptation. Your brain adjusts to new levels of comfort incredibly fast. This is where it gets really interesting. If you instantly convert every raise into a lifestyle upgrade, you aren't actually getting richer. You're just building a bigger cage for yourself. Let's do the math. If you earn $5,000 a month and spend $4,800, you are functionally wealthier than the guy earning $15,000 a month who spends $14,900. Why? Because your financial margin is higher and your risk is lower. Now you might be thinking, John, am I not allowed to enjoy my money? Of course you are, but here is what most people don't realize. Every time you raise your floor of comfort, you lower your ceiling of freedom. You walk into a store, you see a jacket. The tag says $400, but it's marked down to $200, 50% off. Most people walk out of that store thinking they just made $200. No, you didn't. You spent $200. Buying something you didn't need just because it was discounted is a classic poor sign. Marketers love this. It's called the anchor effect. They set a high price, the anchor, to make the second price look like a steal. Look, let's look at the real math. If you spend $100 a week on deals and discounts for things that weren't on your shopping list, that's $5,200 a year. If you took that $5,200 and put it into a low-cost index fund with an 8% return, in 20 years, you'd have over $250,000. You're literally trading $250,000 in your future for a closet full of stuff you'll probably donate to Goodwill in 3 years. That is a very expensive discount. Here's a subtle one that almost everyone does: mental accounting. Let's say you get a $2,000 tax refund or a surprise bonus at work. What's the first thought that enters your head? For most people, it's, what can I buy with this extra money? Here's the thing. Money doesn't have a label on it. The $2,000 you found in a tax refund has the exact same purchasing power as the $2,000 you worked 160 hours for. But because your brain categorizes it as bonus or found money, you feel permission to waste it. A wealthy mindset says, this $2,000 can shave 3 months off my mortgage. A poor mindset says, this $2,000 is a free vacation. This is where the finish line gets moved further away. If you treat windfalls as spending money, you are telling the universe that you aren't ready to handle wealth. We need to talk about the convenience tax. Ordering Uber Eats 3 times a week, taking a $20 Uber instead of walking 15 minutes, paying someone $150 to mow a lawn that takes 30 minutes. Now look, I get the argument. John, my time is worth more than the money I'm saving. But let's be honest, are you actually using that saved time to generate more income? Or are you using it to scroll on TikTok? If you aren't converting that saved time into earned capital, then you aren't being efficient. You're just paying a very high tax for being lazy. Let's run the numbers. The average person in the US spends about $3,000 a year just on food delivery fees and markups. Over a 40-year working career, if that money was invested, it would be worth nearly $800,000. Is not wanting to drive 5 minutes to pick up your pizza really worth $800,000 of your future? Because that's the real price tag. This is the most dangerous one. Financing a lifestyle to look like people who are actually poorer than you. If you're paying for a $1,200 iPhone on a 36-month installment plan, or if your car payment is more than 15% of your take-home pay, you are in a status trap. In economics, we call these Veblen goods, items that people buy specifically because they are expensive and show off status. Here's what most people don't realize. Truly wealthy people, the ones with $5 million or $10 million in the bank, often drive 5-year-old Toyotas and wear plain t-shirts. They don't need to prove anything to anyone. But people who are faking it feel a deep psychological need to use brand logos as a shield against their own financial insecurity. If you're trying to look rich, you'll never actually be rich, because wealth is what you don't see. It's the money in the brokerage account, not the logo on your belt. Have you ever been afraid to open your banking app? Or do you just hit pay minimum on your credit card without looking at the statement? This is the ostrich effect. You think that by burying your head in the sand, the problem will disappear. But look, numbers don't have emotions. They are just data. When you refuse to track your spending or your net worth, you are giving up control. You aren't the pilot of your life. You're just a passenger on a plane that's running out of fuel. The first step to wealth is staring at the ugly truth. Every millionaire I know tracks their net worth down to the penny every single month. If you don't measure it, you can't grow it. If you're running from your numbers, you're running from your freedom. Finally, the most common subtle sign, emotional spending. You had a bad day at work. Your boss was a jerk. You're stressed. So on the way home, you buy something expensive to cheer yourself up. You tell yourself, I worked hard, I deserve this. Look, I get it. Discipline is exhausting. But here's the psychological truth. Using spending as a reward for emotional pain is like drinking salt water when you're thirsty. It gives you a 20-minute dopamine hit, and then you're even thirstier than before. Delayed gratification is the one predictor of financial success. If you can't tell yourself no today so that you can say yes for the rest of your life, you will always be a slave to your impulses. So how do we fix this? How do we stop showing these signs? Before you buy anything over $50 that isn't a necessity, wait 72 hours. If you still want it then, buy it. You'll find that 80% of the time, the impulse dies after the first night. Automate your savings. If your money goes into your investment account before you see it in your checking account, you can't spend it on micro upgrades. Stop bragging about how much you make. Start focusing on your net worth. When your goal is to see that number go up every month, spending $1,000 on a new phone starts to feel like a loss, not a win. Look, being rich isn't about having a high salary. It's about having a high level of discipline. The system is designed to make you a consumer. It wants you to stay in the 90% trap, paying the convenience tax and chasing status symbols. But you're watching this because you want something different. You want a legacy. Stop giving your power away to marketers and impulse buys. You are closer to the finish line than you think, but you have to stop dropping the weight. I want to hear from you in the comments. Which one of these subtle signs hit the closest to home? For me, it was the found money trap for years. Let's talk about it below. And if you want to know the specific formula I use to avoid the 90% wealth trap, watch this video right here. I'll see you in the next one.